What's up, legends? Welcome back to another explosive chapter of What If Deku Had Garou's Abilities? This is part 2, and things are about to get intense. Big shout out to Thebig008 for their awesome work behind the story. Show them some love. Your continuous support means the world. So thanks for being here. Let's jump right in and see what's next for our hero. Chapter 16. Izuku dashed forward, so he was in between the man with the machine gun and his classmate. So you think you can stop a bullet, punk? I've yet to meet a man that can outsmart a bullet, and I don't plan on meeting him soon. The man said as he pointed his gun at Izuku. Fuck me. Why the hell didn't I learn to redirect a bullet when Garou tried to teach me? I shouldn't have been so afraid. If I wasn't afraid, then maybe me and Todoroki would be safe, Izuku thought. He was terrified, but a voice came to his head and set him straight. Come on, kid, you're gonna give up that easily? Put the man in his place and how him. You don't need a quirk to be strong. You're right, Izuku said to himself. Izuku took one last look at Todoroki before locking eyes with the man in front of him. The gun started to spin around and Izuku waited for the first shot to be fired. The man let his gun rotate up to full speed before laying his finger on the trigger, releasing every bullet he had. Everything was a blur for Izuku as soon as the first shot went off. All he could think about was saving his classmate and beating this villain. Izuku moved faster than he ever had before. He redirected every bullet shot towards creating two black streams on his sides. Todoroki watched as Izuku stood in front of him and defended his life. He watched as Izuku's hands produced a blue steam that was so strong it looked as if a steam was running in front of him. He glanced to his sides and saw nothing but black. Were those all bullets? He thought. The entire thing felt like an eternity to Izuku that would never end. But luckily for him it did. He stood up strong, smoke steaming off of his hands. He looked for any bullet wounds and was happy to find he untouched. But the area around him wasn't. Both sides behind Izuku were absolutely torn apart. It looked as if two trans ran straight through the forest. What the fuck are you? The villain said, shaking. Quirkless, was Izuku's simple reply before he rushed the man and landed an uppercut into his jaw, sending him flying back into a little tree. Izuku watched to make sure he was unconscious, and once he was sure the man was Izuku, went to help Todoroki. You good man? Izuku asked. Yeah, I'm fine, but I don't know how you did that. That was incredible. Todoroki replied. Don't praise me yet, icy hot, we still have to get out of here first. The two made their way out of the forest area and found the doves at the edge of a cliff overlooking most of USJ. From there they could see all the disaster zones and the center where the battle had died down. Izuku scanned over the fight in the middle and watched as his teacher had his arm snapped back by the giant-looking bird. Holy shit, Todoroki, we have to help. I'll get down there ASAP, and you work to way done as fast as you can, okay? Todoroki nodded towards Izuku and watched as he ran and jumped off the cliff and into the action below. Izuku landed a little ways away from the fight and starting running towards the massive creature. He was almost there when he heard a blood-curdling scream coming from the water. Izuku looked towards the water and saw Tsu and the pervy kid about to be attacked by a man covered in hands. He quickly contemplated what he should do, and next thing he knew, he was throwing a jab towards the blue hairs man. Izuku was confused when the man easily dodged his jab and grabbed onto his arm. The two just sat there and stared into one another's eyes. I hate your teacher's quirk, the man huffed out. Izuku jumped back and looked towards his teacher to see he had saved his life. His entire body was destroyed and blood ran down his face. But still somehow he was conscious and his hair stood up, deactivating the unknown man's quirk. The beast on top of him cut the moment short though by slamming Aizawa head into the ground below. A splatter of blood spreading around the impact area. What are you supposed to be? Asked Izuku. We're the League of Villains, we re-gauging to destroy society and rebuild it from the ground up. A society not dependent on heroes' actions. The man never got to finish his statement as Izuku used the man's monologue as a distraction to attack. Izuku's first connected with a chest, but Izuku was surprised because it wasn't the chest he was aiming for. He looked up to see the bird creature standing in front of him, unfazed by the hit. Izuku threw out another volley of hits, but each one just bounced off the beast. Nomu, the blue-haired man said, and instantly Izuku felt his ribs shatter. The bird-like creature had moved so fast Izuku couldn't even comprehend it and blasted Izuku square in the chest. sending him flying back and crashing into a random boulder. DKU! Cried out Uraraka. More or less everyone in the class that saw were still in fear. Izuku, the guy who was one of the strongest out of them all, was just obliterated like it was nothing. Even Todoroki and Bakugo were shocked at the creature's power. I hate all you heroes, you're such an eyesore. I can't wait until we kill you all, stated the man with the blue hair. Nomu, the creature, starting walking towards the rest of the class until the blue-haired man saw the rocks by Izuku starting to move. Nomu, wait, he ordered. The class watched as the ruble starting being pushed off to the side as a figure started to emerge. They watched as Izuku lifted himself out of the ruble, but something was different. Izuku looked like he snapped. He was laughing to himself, and for some reason his appearance changed. Izuku now had a red eye and red hair. Uraraka couldn't breathe. The kid she looked up to most, no. The quirkless kid she looked up to so much just took the biggest hit she had ever seen, and he just could get up from it. He really was strong, but he has to be in pain, she thought. He's bleeding so much it stained his eye and hair. Damn. Izuku kicked the last rubble out of his way and looked up at the creature in front of him. All right, now I'm pissed, Izuku yelled out. He dashed forwards at the creature and landed a massive kick to its head, sending the beast skidding back. The beast regained its footing and then charged at Izuku and rushed Izuku, but he was too fast. Izuku dodged every single ouch thrown with ease. Izuku sent a quick set of jabs to the midsection of the beast, each one pushing it back further and further. Nomu, enough, it's obvious this kid is strong, but how strong is he willing to be? The blue-haired man laughed. The class looked at each other to see if they understood what the man meant, but no one could figure it out. Even Izuku couldn't figure out what he meant. Everyone back the fuck up, yelled Bakugo, but it was too late. Nomu, Izuku saw everything in slow motion. He watched as the beast turned from him and started to run towards Uraraka. It clicked what the man meant about how strong Izuku was willing to be. He quickly dashed over and jumped right in front of Uraraka to stop the blow from hitting her straight on, but the beast was 2 steps ahead. He pulled his punch and instead grabbed Izuku's arm. Izuku struggled to try and get out, but he was completely stuck. The creature jumped with so much force it blew back Uraraka and some of the other students as they watched the beast soar into the air with Izuku in hand. As they got closer to the roof, the beast quickly swung Izuku downwards so he could snatch him with his feet. The beast then used his hands to push off from the roof, increasing his speed towards the ground, slamming Izuku right into the dirt. Izuku lost consciousness on impact, but right before he did, all he could hear was the screams of his classmates, but before everything went black he heard a different voice. I am here. Chapter 17. Izuku hearing was the first thing to come back to him. He could hear small murmurs and constant beeps. He must still be in the hospital and it's just the machines. Izuku tried to open his eyes, but all he saw was darkness. Holy shit, and I blind, Izuku thought. He started to panic and tried to move the rest of his body. He couldn't move anything besides his right arm. Oh my god! He's moving! Call the nurse! Someone yelled. Izuku stopped struggling and waited. He heard the door open again and heard the nurse clear her throat. I'm glad you're awake, Izuku, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I can't answer a lot of them, but I can try to the best of my ability. Am I blind? Izuku dryly said. Oh gosh, no darling, we have bandages on your entire head to try and close some of the cuts. I actually think I'm able to take them off now if you want. The nurse asked. Yes, please. The nurse grabbed some scissors and cut the back a couple of strands of bandage so she could start unwrapping. Izuku started to see the bright light through the bandages as they got thinner and thinner until everything went white. He rubbed his eyes a couple of times before looking around the room. In front of him, the nurse stood with a smile on her face. But Izuku got a different look from the window side of the room. There sat Uraraka, Todoroki, Ilda, and Kirishima, who all had faces of discomfort. What's wrong? Izuku asked. Deku. Your right eye and your hair are red now. Uraraka whispered. What do you mean red? Dude, your hair and eye are straight up red and the hospital can't explain it, blurred out Kirishima. Izuku looked over to the nurse hoping she would give him some sort of explanation, but he didn't really get what he was looking for. We ran some tests as we were checking out your vitals to see what happened. We originally thought that it was stained and dried blood that would wash out, but after you were cleaned up, nothing changed. The tests came back without showing any abnormalities. The only thing we could find were some of your cells had an unknown mutation to them. What kind of mutation? asked Izuku. That's the thing we don't know. We took some of your blood and retested it, but nothing harmful came out of it. It's just like a regular cell with a mutation we've never seen before. So I'm fine, Izuku asked as he looked up at the nurse. Well, for the most part you are, but you suffered multiple broken bones, shattered ribs, a fractured skull, and crushed femur and internal bleeding. You should be bedridden for the next couple of months. The nurse explained. We should go, Todoroki spoke up. You are right, Todoroki, it would be very unwise to be late for class. We will be back later to visit Midoriya. Please get better, Hilda said as the other students got up and followed him out. The nurse went to follow, but Izuku stopped her on her way out. Excuse me, nurse, she turned to look at him. Is there any way you can run the tests again? I felt perfectly fine, Izuku said. I'm sure it's just because of the medication, dear, you should get some rest, she said as she turned around to leave, but was stopped when Izuku spread her in front of her, blocking her way. I don't think you quite heard me right. Let's rerun the test. Back at UA, the day was almost over and Aizawa got up to give the last announcements before dismissal. You all know you've been working hard to further yourselves, but the time is coming to show everyone else that. In 2 weeks, UA will host its annual, but before Aizawa could finish, the door to the class flung open. Sorry I'm late, and Aizawa, you wouldn't believe how long it takes to get discharged from the hospital, Izuku said as he made his way to his seat. Deku, I thought you were supposed to be bedridden for the next couple of months, Uraraka spoke up. So did I, but they ran some tests and found out my body responded really well to the meds, which speeded up the process, Izuku explained. Oh, that's so cool, Uraraka said with a smile. Aizawa studied Izuku as he sat down before starting to talk again. As I was saying, the UA Sports Festival is coming up in a couple of weeks, so you need to be prepared. Classes will be very light up until the competition, so each of you have no excuse to not be training. This is very important on your path to becoming heroes, so don't screw it up. Class dismissed. As everyone got up and had started to leave class, Hilda and Uraraka made their way over to Izuku. Hey Deku, do you want to train with us since we have nothing else to do? Asked Uraraka. I would love to, but I can't. I'm trying to learn some new techniques and I just need to be by myself to be the most efficient, Izuku said. That is very wise if you Midoriya. I respect the fact that you are putting training very first in your life. I hope you learn your technique before the festival, Hilda explained. Thanks, Hilda. They'll see you guys later, Izuku said as he grabbed his things and made his way to the door. Once Izuku was off school grounds, he made his way towards the park him and Garou would usually meet up at, but someone stopped him when he felt a large hand on his shoulder. Izuku turned to look at who stopped him and was surprised to see All Might standing over him. Young Midoriya, do you have a second to talk? All Might boomed. Sure. What's up? Come with me and I'll explain. The two made their way back into UA and All Might led him to an empty classroom. Young Midoriya, do you ever wish you had a quirk? Asked All Might. At one time I did, but not anymore, Izuku replied. Why is that? Do you not remember All Might? Izuku asked with some irritation in his voice. What do you mean, young Midoriya? You really have no clue, do you? Izuku laughed. Around 6 months ago, the slime villain that you defeated, yeah, I was the boy you saved, remember now? The kid that you told couldn't be a hero without a quirk, Izuku yelled. Everything clicked for All Might and pain shot across his face. Young Midoriya, I can explain. Cut that crap, All Might, I don't need your pity. I don't hold anything against you, but I am going to prove you wrong. I'm going to prove the number one hero wrong about needing a quirk to be a hero all on my own. So to answer your question, All Might, I don't wish I had a quirk. It's actually the complete opposite. I'm blessed to be quirkless because I see the world from a completely different perspective than all of you. And once I'm a hero, I'll change everyone else's opinion, so being quirkless isn't like having a terrible disease, Izuku said as he grabbed his thing to leave. I'll see you later, All Might, Izuku said as he grabbed his bag and left the pro hero in front of him speechless. Chapter 18. Izuku left the room angered with his conversation with All Might. Are quirkless people really that easy to forget about? He didn't even remember talking with me. Pathetic, Izuku thought. Izuku kept walking until he met up with Garou at the park. What's got you so pissed? Garou laughed. I just hate how everyone's so fixated on freaking quirks. I hate it, Izuku said as he flailed his arms. Yeah, I get that, kid. But don't worry. Remember why you're at that school in the first place. To break down heroes, Garou joked as he lightly pushed Izuku. Yeah, I just can't wait to get out of that damn school. But that's not what Izuku actually thought. He really did enjoy all his classmates. Even Kaken has stayed out of his way. Don't worry, kid, that hell's going to be over soon. Also, I heard about the sports festival. Do you think you're going to do good? Asked Garou. Oh, please, you and I both know I could place top 3 without even trying. Izuku rolled his eyes. Yeah, I know. Also, I gotta ask, kid. What's up with your hair and I? Being 100% honest, I don't have a clue, Izuku shrugged. I woke up in the hospital after the USJ incident, and the doctor told me I had some random cell mutations that caused the color change. I like it, kid. Don't let anyone else tell you different. I 1TL, Izuku said as a smile crawled onto his face. Alright, kid, enough with the sappy shit. Let's go hunt some heroes. 2 weeks later. Izuku opened his eyes and peered to his left to see still Garou meditating. Izuku didn't really understand meditating, but Garou said it strengthened the mind and helped become one with your body. Being honest, Izuku had no idea what Garou meant by any of it, but he knew his mentor wouldn't teach him it if it wasn't important. You ready, kid? Garou said with closed eyes. Yeah, I'm kinda scared people might put 2 and 2 together and realize I have the same fighting style as you. Izuku explained. Don't worry about it, kid. Remember, I'm not the only one that knows the style, so people won't be able to that easily. Garou replied. Yeah, you're right. Are you going to watch? Asked Izuku. Wouldn't miss it, kid. I love watching you walk over these so-called heroes. Now scram and go get ready, you got a big day ahead of you. Yeah, I know, Dad. Izuku laughed as he watched Garou's face twist into horror as he quickly ran out of the park before Garou could stop him. All of Class 1A sat quietly in the waiting rooms, waiting for their class to get called into the roaring arena. Izuku looked around at his classmates. Each one was doing their own little last-minute preparations. Ilda was drinking his orange juice, Sato was eating a cupcake, and Bakugo looked pissed off as always. But the more Izuku looked at him, it wasn't anger in his eyes, but instead pure determination. The class made their way to a large tunnelway that led to the arena, and Izuku could feel the ground shaking from the cheers. They walked down the dark hall, the light getting brighter and brighter until Izuku was the first to exit the darkness. Here we are, laddies and gents, the kids that are not only at the front of the pack, but have already had their fair share of run-ins with villains. Class 1A, yelled Present Mike. The class looked around as the entire stadium exploded with cheering until Present Mike's voice boomed over then. Next, we have a class that hasn't had any run-ins with the villains but are still strong nonetheless. Class 1B. The crowd kept cheering for all the classes to enter the arena. Once everyone was there, Present Mike starting announcing who was going to be part of the festival. Now let's introduce you to our lovely referee for the festival. The rated are Pro Hero Midnight. The crowd roared for the pro hero as she appeared on the stage. You could tell some of the students and the crowd were uncomfortable by the hero's costume, but most of the guys in the stadium seemed to enjoy it. Next up, we have Cementos, who will help USOTH creating the fighting stage later on. Alright people, who's ready for some action? As the arena was booming, Midnight made her way onto the stage to start everything up. Alright everybody, before we start, we have chosen one student to represent these great first years. Coming first in the entrance exam and hailing from Class 1A, Katsuki Bakugo. The class looked towards the hothead as he started his way towards the stage. He sulked his way up with his hands in his pockets and stood in front of the microphone. I just want everyone to know that I'm going to win this thing, Bakugo stated as stunted around and walked back towards his class. His statement didn't sit well with a lot of people. Izuku heard some of the crowd yelling at him for being an arrogant ass. Even some of his own classmates didn't agree with what he said. Come on Baku bro, you can't say things like that, commented Kirishima. Yeah man, that's not cool, Zero chimed in. Izuku watched as Bakugo didn't pay them any attention. He knew exactly why he did that. Bakugo wanted to back himself into a corner so he could make this festival a real challenge for himself. By having everyone paint him as a jerk, they might gun for him, making Bakugo get the challenge he was aching for. Alright everybody, first off we have the obstacle course. So students, make your way over to the starting line. Midnight cheered. As the students made their way over to the starting line, Izuku looked over his competition. He saw Todoroki by himself and figured to stay away from him. Izuku knew he had a good change at getting caught in his ice if he lost focus, so best avoid that at all costs. He then looked over at Bakugo. The spiky blonde had sparks shooting out of his palms, gaining him a weird glance from the kids who didn't know his quirk. Izuku figures he would try and start something instead of focusing on the race, so best steer clear of him. Izuku settled on an area with some of the support class students who didn't pay him any attention. Why should they though? The school knows Izuku as the quirkless kid, so a lot of them don't take him seriously. But Izuku was going to prove them wrong. He was going to beat every single one of them and show them you don't need a quirk to be successful. Present Mike got back on the mic and started the countdown to get the race started. 3. Izuku got into his ready stance. 2. Izuku knew he could do it. He couldn't let himself down. 1. But Izuku knew he wasn't trying so hard for himself. But instead he wanted to impress Garou and show him his training really had made a difference in his life. Start. Chapter 19. Izuku ran forward through the large tunnel of students. As he was running, he watched as everyone pushed each other instead of focusing on their own. Idiots. Izuku got towards the end of the tunnel only to feel a sudden shift in temperatures and instinctively jumped into the air. He was lucky he did, because not a second later the ground turned to ice, encasing students that weren't so lucky. Damn, Todoroki, you're really not going easy, are you? Thought Izuku. Izuku landed on the ice and used his momentum to skate across, gaining speed. He could see the front runners in front of him, Todoroki in the lead, Bakugo closing the gap between the two, and surprisingly Mineta was ahead of him. But that thought was cut short when a metal fist connected to the purple-headed kid's face, sending him flying into a concrete wall. How they're using the same robots as the entrance exam. Too easy. Izuku avoided all the robots he could, so the student behind him still had to fight them off. Izuku was making good progress until he saw one of the 0-pointers from the test flaking right at him. Izuku's body acted on its own as he leapt right up towards the falling robot and spun his body. His rotations picked up until he was a swirling missile of blue, and as he connected with the robot he went right though, ripping a clean hole all the way through the metal. Izuku landed and started running, not worried about anything else but himself. He knew that his classmates might need his help, but not this time. They need to do this on their own, or they don't deserve to be here in the first place. Izuku made it to the second part of the course, a large ravine with some random rocks and a rope connecting the two sides. Izuku watched as Todoroki slid across on his ice while Kaken just propelled himself over. Izuku didn't hesitate and ran full speed towards the rope. He leapt onto it and started running across it like it was nothing. Is this supposed to be hard? Izuku laughed to himself. Then Izuku made it to the last part of the race, the minefield. Shit. Izuku stopped to think about what to do as he watched the two front runners fought in the middle of the field until a devilish idea popped into his head. Izuku jumped into the kind field and ran as fast he could. His footsteps were light and fast enough that he didn't set off the mines, but he couldn't keep doing this. He had to catch up to the leaders fast, or he would eventually set a mine off. Look at these two go at it, but don't focus on them too much. Here comes Izuku Midoriya hoping to take the lead, yelled Present Mike. Damn right, I'll take the lead, Izuku thought as he finally caught up to the two. You damn half and half bastard, you can't beat me, Bakugo yelled. Izuku took this as his moment to strike and cut into the conflict. Don't worry about him, Kaken, I'm not one you need to worry about. Bakugo swung his left arm towards Izuku as Todoroki extended his right to grab him, just as Izuku hoped they would. He quickly grabbed their shoulders and pushed himself up off the ground. As the two aggressors were confused on the action, Izuku grabbed their arms and used his moment to backflip the two behind him and into the ground. As soon as they made contact with the ground, a mine went off, exploding on the two and at the same time throwing Izuku forward out of the field. Izuku stood up and watched as the two got up from the explosion and had burns covering their bodies. Bakugo glare could have killed anyone, but Izuku didn't care. This was nothing compared to the pain he put him through as a kid. Izuku did feel bad though about having the fire and ice user get caught in the crossfire, but this was a competition and people sometimes get hurt. So deal with it, Izuku thought. Izuku turned his heel and ran down the tunnel that led to the arena. As he made it into the area, there were a good amount of cheers, but also some shocked glances in the crowd. They just witnessed a student put his classmates into harm's way to further themselves. That's not something a hero would usually do, but Izuku could care less. He wasn't here to be a hero, so it didn't matter to him. First place goes to Class 1A's Izuku Midoriya, and in second and third Katsuki Bakugo and Shoto Todoroki. present mic yelled over the speakers. As the rest of the students finished, Izuku didn't pay them any attention at all and decided to stretch out fit the next part. Izuku got some dark glances from his fellow competitors, so he assumed they must have heard about what happened in the minefield. But maybe it could work to his advantage and avoid him. All right, everybody, next up we will have a cavalry battle. So get into groups of 4 and get ready. Midnight get yelling about the directions, and Izuku didn't think it would be that hard until she mentioned the first place point value. Since Izuku Midoriya places first in the obstacle course, he will have the privilege of having the 10 million point headband. Shit, if they were avoiding me already, then I'm going to be a ghost now, Izuku mumbled under his breath. Hey Deku, do you want to be on a team? Uraraka asked as she walked up to him. I'm sure, but aren't you worried about me being a big target? Replied Izuku. Well, at first I was, but then I realized that you're one of the strongest out here, so you can handle more or less anything thrown at you. Uraraka said happily. Thanks, but we need to find 2 more people, and from the looks of it, that might be hard. As Izuku was talking with Uraraka, another student came and cut into their conversation. Hi, I'm Hatsum. I noticed you guys need another member, so I'm here to help. Izuku pinches his nose, seeing as the girl didn't look like much help, but he knew he had to find another teammate, so he had no choices. Sure, screw it, why not, Izuku said as he pinched the bridge of his nose. Do worry about me, Midoriya. I'm from the support class, so I can use support items. So we can an edge over everyone, Hatsum explained. Izuku nodded at her and started to look for their last teammate. Perfect, Izuku said as the 2 girls watched him walk across the arena. Tokoyami, it looks like you're in need of a team, and lucky for us we need 1 member, so what do you say? Izuku said as he extended his hand for Tokoyami to take. The bird-headed classmate looked down at Izuku's hand before growing a smirk on his face. He grabbed Izuku's hand and shook as the 2 girls made their way over to talk strategy for the expected battles ahead. Chapter 20. 1 word and everything turned to chaos. Start. Izuku's team was instantly swarmed by eager competition gunning for the top spot, but they all came up short when the first place team flew to the sky. If we stay up here, we should be fine, Izuku yelled to his team. Right, they said in unison. Izuku watched as the battle unfolded in front of him. He watched as the groups eventually stopped focusing on them, so they had a chance at gaining more points. It looks like we're in the clear for now, but stay on your toes, called Izuku. The match was kind of boring for Izuku's team. Nobody really tied anything on them because of how high up they were. The only action they got was the occasional projectile shot up, but not even that did anything thanks to Dark Shadow. Hey Izuku, are sure this okay? Asked Uraraka. Sometimes a hero has to be patient and take the safer option. So as long as we stay safe up here, I don't really see any problem. Izuku replied. Heads up on your left, yelled Hatsum. Izuku's eyes darted to his left and met the gaze of the approaching target. Izuku watched as Bakugo projected himself upwards towards the number 1 team. Tokoyami, Izuku yelled. Dark Shadow won't attack. H is sensitive, too light. Tokoyami screamed back. Alright, screw it. There's a minute and a half left, so no matter what happens, make sure I don't hit the ground, Tokoyami, Izuku demanded. The bird-headed student nodded at Izuku, confused at what was about to happen until his eyes widened. He watched as Izuku stood up and leapt into the air, free falling directly towards Bakugo. Izuku felt the wind scream across his face as he picked up speed towards the raging blonde. Izuku knew he only had 1 chance to get this right, or he would fall to the ground and be disqualified. What do you think you're doing, Deku? Bakugo yelled. Izuku kept quiet as the gap between them closed smaller and smaller until they could see the color of one another's eyes. Bagwo stopped his explosions and put up his left arm to block the side of his face. Izuku knew he had to catch Bakugo off guard, and after a split second of thinking, he came up with the best idea possible. Izuku raised his arms above his head to try and drive down onto Bakugo's head, leaving his entire front side open. Bakugo took the chance and shot 1 last explosion to propel himself forward into his childhood friend. Bakugo cocked his right arm back and threw his punch with everything he had right into Izuku's lower stomach. OF, Izuku coughed out. Not so damn strong now, are you? You damn DKU. Izuku took the moment to put everything into place. He quickly grabbed Bakugo's arm and pulled him closer, seeing the blonde's face contort in confusion. Izuku then pushed Bakugo back and did a front flip motion, bringing his right leg down right onto Bakugo's collarbone. Izuku watched as the blonde went flying downward in a spiraling motion due to him having difficulty moving his right arm. Sadly though, before Bakugo hit the ground, a piece of tape shot towards him and pulled him back to his team. "Damn it," Izuku said to himself before realizing he was still falling. Shit, Izuku thought as he started to pick up speed towards the ground. He looked around for Dark Shadow but didn't see him anywhere. Damn it, this is how it ends. Izuku could clearly see everything below him now, and it was only a matter of time until he hit the ground. But at the last second, he heard a sudden scream. "Hey!" Izuku's eyes shot towards the voice and saw Dark Shadow flying towards him. The bird threw its arm out towards Izuku, who gladly accepted it. The arm threw Izuku upwards back to his team, and he softly landed on Tokoyami's shoulders. "Thanks man, you saved me," Izuku said. "You saved us from Bakugo, so the feeling are mutual," the bird replied with closed eyes. And that's time. The team slowly made their way back to the ground and walked towards the big crowd forming in front of the stage. In first place, we have Team Midoriya, Siak Team Todoroki, third Team Bakugo, and in fourth Team Shinso, Midnight announced to the roaring crowd. Next, we will have one-of-one fights tournament style until only one of you remains. Matches are won by either knockout, ring-outs, or incapacitation. Here are your first round matches ups. Midnight cheered as she gestured to the screen behind her. Izuku looked it over and realized he would be up against the purple-haired kid. He looked for him until he found the kid starting rigged back at him, a smug smirk creeping across his face. "Excuse me, Midnight. I would like to withdraw from the competition. I don't remember anything from the fights, so I don't deserve to be in the final round." Ojiro spoke up. "Me too. I would like to withdraw my spot," another Class 1B student stated. "Aw, you guys are so youthful, I'll allow it. Those of you that qualified for the last round, be prepared. Everyone else, please go find your seats," Midnight announced. Izuku walked from the crowd and into the waiting room designated for the contenders. He didn't really know anything about the purple-haired kid, so he would have to be careful. Izuku knew he was physically stronger, but he had no idea what kind of quirk the purple-haired kid was hiding. "Oh well, it shouldn't be anything I can't handle," Izuku said to himself as he made his way towards the arena. Izuku has some extra time to bring before the match, so he decided he could get some extra stretching in. He was almost there until he heard some yelling down one of the halls and decided to investigate. The voices were quiet, but he could pick up a few words here and there. "Use your left." "I won't use it." Izuku's ears perked up at the mention of the word left. He knew exactly who was in the conversation and hurried his way further down the fall until he was the closet he could get without being seen. "Damn it, Shoto, I raised you better than this," Endeavor yelled. "I won't use it. I'll win this tournament without using your power," Todoroki screamed back. Endeavor raised his left arm and swung at his son, landing a solid backhand right on the kid's cheek. Todoroki stood his ground and didn't move a muscle. Izuku could feel the air getting thicker by the moment. He knew something was about to happen and it wasn't going to be pretty. Izuku quickly patted down his pocket and felt his phone. He quickly grabbed it and opened up his microphone app to record the impending conversation. "Thank God I'm an idiot and forgot to leave my phone in the room," Izuku mumbled to himself. He clicked the red button on his phone and waited for the two to start conversing again. "Pathetic. I married your mother for the sole purpose of breeding a kid that had the power to surpass All Might. Took me a couple of tries until I finally got your ungrateful ass with a powerful quirk. You would be leading the school if you would accept your destiny and use your left side. I won't use my left. I'll never succumb to the darkness you give off, and I'll become a pro-hero all on my own. So leave me alone," Todoroki replied with venom in each word. "Humph," Endeavor said as he walked towards his son. He pushed right through him and knocked Todoroki out of the way. "Keep defying me, and I'll make your life even worse than I did your mother's," the flame hero whispered. Chapter 21. Izuku stood shocked at what he had just witnessed. A pro-hero abusing his son, and then on top of all that threatening him for not using his full power. Izuku was furious. It all just kept adding up, more and more reasons to hate the heroes. But this was different. How could someone's own father raise a child for the sole purpose of being powerful? Disgusting. Izuku was beyond pissed. He was livid, and he was going to let it all out against whoever had to face him. Izuku quickly ran back towards the room where his bag was so he could put his phone down. He threw his phone into his bag and dashed off towards his entrance to the fighting stage. As Izuku got closer and closer, he could hear the roar of the crowd until he was surrounded by it. Coming from Class 1A, we have the winner of Obstacle Course and the Cavalry Battle. The first quirkless student in UA History TI make it to the hero program. Izuku Midoriya, yelled Present Mike. Izuku walked out of the tunnel and watched as a lot of the crowd was going crazy for him, but at the same time, a lot were scared. It was probably because a quirkless kid could do so well, Izuku thought. And coming all the way from Class 1C in General Studies, the underdog of this tournament, Hitoshi Shinso. Izuku watched as the purple-haired kid walked towards the arena, a smug smirk sitting on his face. Izuku was not happy. Is he looking down at me just because I don't have a quirk, or just because he's an arrogant ass? Izuku felt a cold sensation run through his arm. He looked down and realized he was clenching his hand so tight his knuckles were starting to go numb. Start. Neither of the two moved an inch. They just stared at one another, waiting for the other to make the first move. Why don't you turn around and do us all the pleasure of eliminating your quirkless, pathetic self? Shinso said with a smirk. Izuku brought his hand up and cracked his knuckles. He was going to enjoy beating the shit out of this purple-haired freak. You're looking down on me, aren't you? Izuku said with venom as he took off towards Shinso. The purple-haired kid just smirked and whispered, "It's over." Everything went black for Izuku. He looked around and saw nothing but his memories, all the ones that caused him so much pain. Then a memory of Garou appeared. It was the first time Garou told him, Izuku, that he would eventually be so strong he could walk over anyone. And then everything went white. Izuku rubbed his eyes and was shocked at the picture in front of him. Shinso was on his knees, blood pouring out from his nose and his mouth. "What's wrong with you? Your mind is just filled with rage and hate. I could barely keep my hold on you." Shinso yelled as he coughed up more blood. Izuku has no idea what had just happened, but he didn't care. The match was still going. Izuku walked over towards Shinso until he was towering over him. Shinso looked up at the monster in front of him. Izuku reached down and picked him up by the chin. "That's what you get for looking down at me," Izuku whispered as he slammed his fist into Shinso's gut. The mind controller's body flew off the stage and landed with a thud in the grass. "And Izuku Midoriya wins by ring out and knock out," Midnight yelled. Izuku walked off the stage and back towards the waiting room. Before he entered the tunnel, he took one last look towards Shinso. He was getting stretchered off to go to the infirmary. Serves him right for trying to dive into my mind. Izuku was making his way back towards his class's seats, but got stopped when a large figure blocked the hall in front of him. "You know, for someone that's quirkless, you seem to have a good amount of strength," the figure said. "Endeavor," Izuku replied. "You may be strong among the quirkless, but you're no match for someone with a quirk. You will lose against Shoto and learn your place below him." The number 2 hero scoffed. "Look, I don't want to get twisted into your ugly family relations, but you should know Todoroki is his own person. You need to stop manipulating him into your own vision. It's disgusting." Izuku instantly felt the hallway's temperature rise. The flame hero walked towards him until he was right over Izuku. "You should hold your tongue, boy. It would be a shame if an accident were to happen to the great quirkless student," Endeavor said with venom. "Did you just threaten me?" asked Izuku. "Maybe I did, but no matter what you tell anyone, no one will believe you. I have everyone wrapped around my finger, and I'll be damned if they decide to listen to a quirkless mutant like yourself. I saw the pictures of you before the USJ incident. Something in you changed. You don't deserve to stand in front of me," the hero said as he pushed his way through Izuku while purposely burning him on his arm. Izuku stood still and let the hero get down the hall a little before calling after him. "Hey, Endeavor," Izuku said, and the hero turned around. "I'm going to ruin you." The hero just turned and left Izuku by himself in the hall. Izuku looked down at his arm and saw the burn didn't really seem that bad, so there was no point in treating it. Izuku hurried back to his seat just in time to see the end of his childhood friend's fight. Aizawa was yelling on the microphone about Bakugo being a good sport in all, and Izuku couldn't help but smile. Even after everything Bakugo has done to him, he still was happy that his friend was succeeding. The match ended with Uraraka passing out. thus ending the first round. Izuku looked towards the screen to see who he would be facing. Todoroki, I won't go easy on you. I have to win, Todoroki said, pulling Izuku out of his thoughts. He looked at the half and half user and could see the determination and hate in his eyes. I know. Don't hold back on me, Izuku replied. Todoroki didn't say anything after that. He just walked past Izuku down the stairs towards the waiting rooms. Izuku got some good lucks from his classmates and thanked them all before going down the same path Todoroki took. Izuku sat in the waiting room until it was time for his fight. He stood up and made his way towards the arena thinking of how he was going to face the ice user. He knew it was going to be a challenge getting close to him, but if he could close the gap, then it was over. Coming from Class 1A, who easily defeating his opponent in round 1 with only one blow, Shoto Todoroki, and his opponent also coming from Class 1A, the one who with no quirk and ruthlessly won his first match, Izuku Midoriya. The two stood there with locked eyes waiting for the call to start. Each kid having a look of pure determination and the desire to win in their eyes. And in a matter of moments, it was all going to be on the line. Start. Chapter 22. Izuku jumped to his side, dodging the incoming blast of ice. He landed and quickly ran towards Todoroki, only for the ice user to shoot another large blast at Izuku. Izuku didn't have enough time to evade, so he tried his best as breaking through the ice. He timed his punch to hit the ice just before it came into contact with his chest. As his fist made contact, the ice exploded everywhere, but Izuku didn't get off untouched. To him, the ice felt like solid steel. He knew he could break through it a couple of times, but eventually his knuckles would shatter. Blast after blast kept coming towards Izuku. Todoroki didn't give the red-haired kid any chance to move. By constantly firing off blasts of ice, Izuku had no choice but to stand his ground and bulldoze through. Izuku, you're clearly outmatched. Submit now before you cause yourself any more damage. Todoroki yelled over another ice blast. Izuku slammed his left fist into the ice, sharing it, and yelled, "Like hell I will." Izuku quickly grabbed one of the shard of ice laying by his feet and flung it towards the ice user as a distraction. Todoroki saw the ice shard flying towards him and threw up an ice wall to block. The shard crashed into the wall with so much force it broke it down completely. "Where'd you go?" yelled Todoroki. "Right behind you," Izuku whispered. Todoroki quickly turned around and swung at Izuku's head. Izuku easily ducked under the swing and swept out his opponent's legs. As Todoroki fell towards the ground, Izuku raised his right arm and swung downward, propelling Shoto right into the ground. As he landed, the rubble around the two cracked outwards, spreading a decent amount across the stage. Izuku raised his leg in an attempt to bury Todoroki even further down, but stopped when he felt a cold sensation growing up his left leg. He leapt back and looked down to see ice growing up his leg. Izuku quickly stuck the ice, shattering it completely before it could grow anymore. "That was a dirty move," Izuku called. "Nothing's dirty if it's allowed," Todoroki replied. The two ran head-on at each other until they were almost in range. Izuku leapt up and threw a roundhouse towards Shoto's side, only to be met with a wall of ice. The two kept at it for a little longer, each landing their respective blows. Izuku was definitely more skilled in hand-to-hand, but every time he landed a blow, Todoroki managed to freeze the attacking body part and counter while Izuku hastily broke the ice. This kept going until Todoroki shot a sudden blast of ice towards Izuku, hitting him dead center. The red head flew back towards the edge of the ring, but stopped himself by digging his feet into the ground. "Why don't you use your left?" Izuku asked as he stood up. "I won't use my left. Ever. I don't need that power to be a hero. It's your own damn power, Shoto. Not your freaking father's," yelled Izuku. Todoroki was caught completely off guard by the sudden comment. "You don't have to follow in your dad's footsteps. Pave your own path, be your own hero. But don't hold back your power because of him. Use it and prove him wrong. Prove to him you'll create your own destiny." Izuku screamed as he took off towards Todoroki. The ice user just stared at Izuku as he closed the gap between them. "I can't," whispered Todoroki. "Then I'm really sorry about the Shoto, but you have to learn," Izuku said as he shot himself forward faster than his opponent expected. Todoroki raised his left arm to block, thinking Izuku would kick him out of the ring, but he was so wrong. Izuku swiftly jumped to his open side and landed a bone-breaking punch straight into Todoroki's bicep. "Shich. The ice user screamed as body exploded in flames. Izuku flew back from the sudden burst of energy, but quickly recovered by throwing his legs above him to rotate. As soon as his body rotated enough, he threw his feet into the ground and skidded to a stop. Izuku's eyes widened as the flames grew larger and larger. He locked eyes with Todoroki and smiled. The half-and-half user had a crooked smile growing across his face. "I don't know if I should thank you, Midoriya. Breaking my right arm to force my left is a little harsh, don't you think? I'm sorry, Todoroki, but I know you want to win this more than any of us. So you would go through any means necessary, including using you left side if it was the only option left." "Heh, call me Shoto," he said as he lifted his arm up towards Izuku. Izuku knew there was no way to avoid the massive attack that was soon to come, so his only choice was to block. Todoroki's hand turned bright red before a large flame exposed outworks. The crowd watched in horror as the entire fighting stage disappeared in flames. As the smoke went down, the winner was clear. Standing inside the boundaries was Todoroki, whose entire top half of clothing had been burned off, and Izuku, who was unconscious and implanted into the side of the wall. "The winner is Todoroki by knockout and ring out," Midnight yelled as the crowd exploded into cheers. Izuku woke up with his chest covered in bandages. He looked around and noticed he was in the infirmary by himself. He reached down towards the hospital bed remote and pressed the red button for assistance, and in a matter of moments Recovery Girl was in the room. "You're finally awake. I healed you up, so you may be a little more tired than usual." Recovery Girl spoke up. "Thank you. If you don't mind me asking, how bad were my injuries?" "Not too bad, a couple of burns here and there and a good amount of bruising in your knuckles. But they should all fade by tomorrow." Izuku nodded his head and looked out the window. "Who won?" he asked. "It came down to Endeavor's son and that angry blonde. The blonde ended up winning by a knockout though. You must be tired, let me finish up some paperwork and you'll be free to go." Within the next 10 minutes or so, Izuku was on his way home. He contemplated going and finding Garou, but based on the time he was probably off hunting, so he decided against it. Izuku walked up to his house and unlocked his door. He looked for his mom until he found a note saying she went to sleep but was proud of his fights earlier in the day. A smile grew on Izuku's face as his #1 supporter from day one said she was proud of him. It was a good way for Izuku to end his day as he threw off his cloths and hopped into his bed and eventually faded into sleep. 3 hours earlier. "Damn, half and half thinking he could beat me. In his fucking dreams," Bakugo said to himself as he changed out of his uniform. Bakugo got up and walked towards the door, kicking it open with a loud bang. He made his way down the hall before getting an odd feeling. He turned the corner and swung his back up against the lockers. He waited for a second as footsteps got closer and closer to him. As they were just about to round the corner, Bakugo jumped out from his hiding spot and swung a right hook. The figure standing in front of him easily caught his fist mid-swing and set him down. "Young Bakugo, just the man I was looking for." Chapter 23. All right class, with the sports festival over, we'll be going right into the next chapter of your studies. This is going to be different though, as you will not be taught in this classroom but instead on the streets. Pro heroes use the festival as a chance to scout out potential sidekicks and offer them internships. Each of you will participate in an internship and be graded based on your performance. As you can see, each of you had some, but this year the offers were more clustered. Aizawa said as he motioned to the board behind him. Izuku looked over the board. Todoroki got the most amount of offers, followed by Bakugo. Izuku wasn't surprised with that. They were both strong, so they deserved it. But what did catch Izuku off guard was numbers. Out of the entire class, Izuku ranked 6th to last. Damn. Each of you will be given 2 days to pick where you will intern, and the decision will be final. You leave on Monday, so be ready, the teacher explained as he passed out papers to each student. Izuku glanced over his list to see what offers he got. The highest of the list was Best Genist. "Deku, who are you going to intern with?" Uraraka asked, pulling Izuku out of his thoughts. I don't know yet, to be honest," Izuku replied while rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm going to go intern under Gunhead," Uraraka stated proudly. Izuku's eyes widened at what his classmate just said. "Gunhead? I thought he got beaten down by the hero hunter." "Well, he did, but he's out of the hospital now and is back on the job." "Oh, what about you, Ilda?" asked Uraraka. "I will be interning with Manuel in Hosu City," Ilda replied while looking down at his feet. The class went on for a little longer, but nothing really happened. Izuku listened in to his classmates' conversations on where they would be interning at. He heard Mineta will be with Mount Lady, Kirishima with Fourth Kind, and Bagwo with All Might. Izuku scoffed at the thought of Bakugo getting special attention from All Might. He knew something was going on between them, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Class, sit down. We have one more important matter to attend to before your internships, and that is picking your hero names. I'm not the best at this, so Midnight will be helping you all and approving names. As Aizawa finished talking, the door swung open to reveal the rated R hero. All right, everybody, these names are going to be permanent, so choose wisely. Each name should represent something about you, and you should be proud to call yourself that. Don't pick a random name because you may regret it. Isn't that right, Eraserhead? Midnight joked with the other teacher. Whatever, Aizawa said quietly as he pulled up his sleeping bag and drifted right off into sleep. I'll pass out whiteboards for you all to brainstorm ideas. Midnight cheered as she's starting to pass out the supplies. Izuku stared at the board in front of him and slipped into his deep thoughts. He had no idea what to put as his hero name. He never thought he would make it this far. And regardless of his name, he wasn't a hero. He would never be one. Izuku looked up from his board to see everyone had more or less chosen their names already. The only two left was him and Bakugo. King Explosion Murder, Bakugo said to the room. Definitely not, the pro-hero commented. Why not, you damn slut? Bakugo yelled at her. Because it's not a heroic name. Try again, she said, irritated as the explosive blonde made his way back to his seat. Izuku looked down at his board and a memory popped into his head. Doesn't it mean you can do it? A smile grew on his face as Izuku knew what his hero name would be. He wrote down the work and walked his way to stand in front of the class. He turned the board around and everyone was silent until Siro spoke up. Deku? I thought that was an insult. It was, but someone changed my view on the word not long ago. And I'm proud to be called Deku now. Deku said as he flashed a smile at Uraraka. All you guys are so cute together, Mina squealed. Both Izuku's and Uraraka's faces flushed red as Izuku made his way back to his seat. All right, that's everyone. Bakugo, you need to come up with a name soon. So let me know when you figure it out. You guys are dismissed. Midnight called. Izuku quickly grabbed his things and ran out of the room before Uraraka could catch up to him. He had no idea why he was so embarrassed by Mina's comment. Izuku shook it off and ran towards the park to find Garou eating some ramen. Looks good. Get me anything, asked Izuku. Shut up, kid. What's with the paper? Garou said, motioning you the paper Izuku was holding. Oh, it's my list of possible internships for next week. Apparently the pros watched the festival and want me to work under them for a week. Izuku replied. Let me see it. Garou yawned with an outstretched arm. Izuku handed him the paper and watched as he skimmed through the heroes' names. Thought you would get some better offers, but I can see why you didn't. You beat down your opponents so much they don't even want to touch you, Garou said with a laugh. Izuku chuckled at the comment but stopped when he saw his mentor freeze up. What's wrong? Asked Izuku. Garou didn't saw anything. He just stayed still and stared at the paper. Garou, what the hell? Izuku said, starting to sound scarred. Garou handed the paper back to Izuku. Number 43 on the list, Honorary Pro Hero Silverfang, otherwise known as my sensei, Garou said with a whisper. Izuku's heart skipped a beat. The man that taught Garou everything he knows just offered to him to take those same steps. But why would he get an offer from Silverfang? He's not even a real pro hero. Can I even intern there? I don't know what to tell you, kid. That man is not a pro hero, and if he is, he's not associated with ours pros. He's a smart man, so he has a good chance at connecting you to me. I just don't see why he would reach out to you. Garou explained. Maybe it's an ambush, Izuku reasoned. He's smart, not a genius, kid. He knows you're in the hero course trying to become a hero. He wouldn't reach out to just ambush a kid. He's not like that. From a logical standpoint, he would be the best mentor besides me. He created both the water-steam rock-smashing fist technique and the abandonment. Whoa, if you want to intern under him, I won't stop you. But if you do, you need to tell him me and you have no connections anymore. Make up something about you learning from me and then going off on your own to be a hero once you realized I'm against them. Garou said. I guess it's settled then. I'm going to learn from your master. Chapter 24. Monday. Izuku hopped to the train and looked up at the map. The map was mostly irrelevant besides the big yellow box saying "You are here," indicating Izuku had finally made it to City A. What a stupid name for city. I've never even heard of it before last week. Izuku whispered to himself. He exited the train station and looked at the area around him. It looked like any other city he had seen. He punched the address the school gave him into his phone and started his way towards his new internship. Izuku walked through the city until he found himself at a steep set of stairs leading up a mountain. He climbed the stairs for about 10 minutes before he was at the top and was met by an old-style building. It looked right out of a karate movie, thought Izuku. He walked up the door and knocked 3 times. The door opened up to reveal an old man with gray hair and a slouch. Izuku, come in, we have much to discuss." The old man motioned Izuku in. Izuku walked into the dojo to see an empty room with wood floors and some Japanese symbols written on the wall. "Come and make yourself at home." The old man gestured for Izuku to come onto the floor. Izuku took his shoes and followed. "All right, you may know me as Silver Fang, but enough with all the formalities. Just call me Bang." "All right, Bang. I don't mean to be rude, but don't you seem a little old to be a pro still?" Izuku asked. "MHM, why don't we figure out if I still am? Let's have a quick spar. Winner can decide what's for dinner. Do we have a deal?" Bang asked. "Deal." Izuku walked away from Bang to create a decent gap between the two and got into his fighting stance. Bang just stood still with his hands behind his back. "On your mark," Bang said. "Go," Izuku yelled as he charged the old man. Izuku sent out a volley of attacks only for the old man to block every single one with only one hand. Izuku knew the match was already over but for some reason and just let him keep attacking. But when Izuku was least expecting it, he felt Bang's heel drive into his cheek. Izuku flew back from the impact only to see a flash of blue and then was suddenly caught mid-air by the old man. Bang set him down and gave him a towel to wipe off. "Garou taught you well, but you still have much to learn," Bang said as he broke the silence. Izuku stared at the man in front of him. He really didn't give a shit about making it weird. He just went and called Izuku out. "He taught me the basics, but other than I'm kinda lost." "Why did he stop teaching you?" asked Bang. "I caught him beating down a hero one night and confronted him on his motives. All he said was he wanted to break down hero society, and that was enough for me to leave him," Izuku explained. Bang looked the red-haired boy over before smiling and putting his hand on Izuku's shoulder. "You made the right choice by following the steps of a hero. Now time for dinner," Bang said with a grin. The two walked from the dojo onto the streets below until they found a local ramen shop. The duo pushed open the curtain to reveal the shop owner and a bald man in a sweatshirt. Saitama, how's it going?" Bang asked the bald man. "Who are you again?" Saitama asked. "Good to see you too. Saitama, this is Midoriya. He will be training with me for the next week if you would like to stop by for a lesson or two," Bang offered with a smile. "No thanks. Nice to meet you, Midoriya, but I have to go before the market closes, so goodbye," the bald man said as he paid his check and left. "What's with the sour look?" asked Izuku. "Believe it or not, that man is the strongest man I've ever met in my life, and on top of that he has had no training. I would love to teach him the ways of martial arts so he has some sort of style, but he never accepts." Bang lie. There was no way in hell that man was strong. He had no muscle on his body, he had openings everywhere, and overall he looked like a complete dunce, Izuku thought. Bang grabbed the food and the two made their way back to the dojo to eat. As they ate, they talked about their lives to make everything less awkward until eventually they were finished. The two said their goodbyes and split off to go to bed. Bang went off to his own area while Izuku was shown to a small room with nothing but a bed by another one of Bang's students named Shirenko. He didn't seem like much of a fighter, but who was Izuku to judge? And with that, Izuku drifted to sleep. The next few days went by in a flash for Izuku. Each day was the worst training he's ever had in his life. It was so bad it made Garou training look like baby steps. But in the end, Izuku knew he was improving vastly. He might even be able to compete against Garou. If there was a handicap, again Bang commanded. Izuku took a deep breath and placed his hands on the large stacks of solid granite. He quickly tapped the center of the top block and watched as the both stacks cleanly broke down the middle. "Very good," Bang told Izuku as the door opened to the dojo. In the doorway stood an older man around the same age of Bang, but he had a lot longer hair and wore a more traditional martial arts attire. "Ah, Bomb, you made it," Bang said with a smile. "Of course I would. Who's this?" The man motioned towards Izuku. "This is my disciple for the week, Midoriya." "Midoriya, this is my brother Bomb," explained Bang. "It's an honor to meet you," Izuku said as he bowed. I'm not one for formalities, but thank you. So my brother has finally decided to teach again. What made you change your mind about teaching again?" Bomb whispered to Bang. "I couldn't let another one go down the wrong path, Bomb. I had to make sure he wouldn't follow Garou way." Bang replied, "I see. Hey Bomb, are you also a martial arts master?" Izuku spoke up. "I am, but not with the water stream rock smashing fist style. I created my own, one that's better than my brother's." Bomb said with a laugh as he cracked his knuckles. "My brother created the whirlwind iron cutting fist style. It's on par with my own, so it's nothing to mess around with, Midoriya." Bang explained. "That's incredible," Izuku said, shocked. The man walked over to Izuku and out his hand on his shoulder. "Let's go outside and I'll show you what I can do." Chapter 25. The three walked outside the dojo and into the training grounds and made their way over to a punching dummy. Bomb looked over to his brother for approval, and once it was given, he moved his arms over his chest, creating a spiraling stream of red around him. The test dummy looked untouched, but in a matter of moments, 3 distinct rings formed and the dummy fell to the ground in pieces. "Wow, that's amazing," Izuku said, shocked. "Ha, it really is. But sadly, one cannot learn both styles of martial arts due to the physical toll it would take on the user. The switching between the two would tear all muscle fibers down the roots, leaving the user with no power." "Damn," Izuku said under his breath. The demonstration was cut short by Shiranko bursting through the door and running towards the group. Sensei Bang. The Hero Association called all S-class heroes to the headquarters immediately to talk about an impending threat. Shiranko shouted as he arrived at the group. "Mew. Midoriya, I'm sorry, but this internship must end sooner than we thought. Pack your bags and I'll get a ride for you to the station," Bang said as he turned his back and headed his way towards the dojo. "Wait, Bang. Why can't I come with you to this meeting?" Izuku beckoned. "The S-class heroes don't react well to outsiders at meetings, and once they find out about you being my honorary disciple, that would make it worse. They still have a sore spot about Garou and may not be ready to learn. I am already teaching more students," Bang explained as he left Izuku with the other two. Izuku stormed towards the dojo and packed his things. He quickly exited before anyone could stop him and made his way down Todoroki streets below. Why did Bang just have to up and leave? I was finally starting to master everything for it all to just fall through my fingers. Damn it. Izuku whipped his phone out and shot Garou a text to explain the situation. "Hey, change of plans. My internship ended sooner than it should have. That works out perfectly, kid. Hop on a train to Hosu and be there by tonight. There's someone I want you to meet. See you there." Izuku hopped on the train for Hosu and starting to think about who Garou wanted him to meet, but in the end he gave up. Garou was a wild card, so it could literally be anyone. After a few hours, Izuku had made it to Hosu and left the train station. "Hey, I'm here. Where should I meet you?" "Look around the roofs, kid. You should know that by now." Izuku laughed as he put his phone away and scanned the rooftops above. And sure enough, standing on top of a building water tank was Garou. Izuku walked to the building and climbed up the fire escape to meet his mentor. "Jesus, kid. It took you long enough," Garou said jokingly. "Hey, give me some slack. I wasn't even supposed to be here," Izuku said as he jumped onto the water tank. "So who are we meeting up with?" asked Izuku. "An old friend of mine. He should be here soon." As Garou finished, he spun around to catch a dagger thrown at him. "Still with the cheap shot stain? You know you can't catch me off guard," Garou said as he tossed the blade back to the unknown figure that appeared on the roof. "Just making sure you're still agile as ever." "Hero Hunter," the man said as he extended his hand. Garou smirked and took the man's hand. "As always, Hero Killer." Izuku was in disbelief. Standing in front of him were two of the most powerful and well-known criminals he had heard of. "Garou, what the hell? You never told me you were associated with the Hero Killer," Izuku yelled, butting into the conversation. "The name's Stain, punk, and we're not associated. Just friends. Me and him go way back to when I first left my hometown. We ran together for a while before breaking off to do our own things. me hunting and him killing. Garou explained, we mutually accept each other's boundaries as long as we don't go after the same hero. If we do, then our ties to one another are cut, and may the best man win, Stain added. Izuku was at a loss for words. He really couldn't comprehend what was happening right now, so he tried to get some insight on the situation. So why did you guys decide to meet up? Asked Izuku. It's been a while since we've seen each other, so we decided to catch up. Garou explained. So who are you, punk? Stain spoke up. This right here is Izuku Midoriya, my appreciation and hero hunter in training, Garou said as he gave Izuku a noogie. Screw off, Garou, Izuku said as he pushed the man off him. So you finally found someone to teach. And if I'm right, a UA student nonetheless, the hero killer said with a sadistic grin. Don't get any ideas, Stain. He's there for the sole purpose of breaking it down from the inside, Garou said as he raised his arm in between Izuku and Stain. Jesus, Garou, don't get your nuts in a twist. I wouldn't do anything. Stain didn't get to finish his statement because he was interpreted by a sudden dark presence. Behind the three, a dark mist starting to swirl, and instantly Garou had stepped in front of Izuku and Stain hand pulled his sword out. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Kurojiri, and I'm an associate with the League of Villains. I would like to have a conversation with you too. But the boy must stay, the villain said as his bright eyes narrowed at Izuku. Garou stood up and put his hand on Izuku's shoulder. I'll go if he comes. So be it, Kurojiri echoed as the fog encased the three. Izuku watched as everything went black, and in a matter of moments he was hit with the smell of alcohol. He looked around to see an old rundown bar. Kurojiri appeared behind the bar and started to clean glasses, leaving the three confused. Why did you bring us here? Stain spoke up. A door at the other end of the bar flung open to reveal a blue-haired man with a hand covering his face. His red eyes peered in between the fingers and sent shivers down Izuku's spine. Well, I just wanted to talk to the great hero hunter and hero killer. Isn't that right, Kurojiri? Chapter 26. The man walked towards the three before stopping and sitting down at the bar. So tell me, what's your guy's endgame? The man asked. What do you mean endgame? Stain said as he walked towards the bar. What's your resolve? Why do you do what you do? The man questioned. To eliminate people that abuse their power and profit from it. I want to purge society of those who act on their own self-interests. Stain replied. What's your name? Garou spoke up. Just call me Shigaraki. What about you, hero hunter? What's your mission? Tear down everything and rebuild it from the ground up. Create a world that's better for everyone. Garou replied. Now tell me, hero hunter. Is that why you brought a UA student here with you? Garou moved closer to Izuku on mention of the kid's name. Or is it that you have an inside mole at the most prestigious school in Japan? Shigaraki said with an evil smirk. And then shit hit the fan. Stain threw a dagger as hard as he could at the bartender. The dagger dug into Kurojiri's arm, causing blood to shoot out on impact. Stain then jumped into the air while extending his tongue to consume some of the blood and landed on the blue hair man. Izuku watched as the hero killer dug his foot into Shigaraki's forearm and used his right arm to pin the villain's free limb to the ground. As Stain pinned him to the ground, Izuku noticed blood starting to pool on the ground from Shigaraki's arm. Izuku's eyes went wide when he saw why he was bleeding. It was due to Stain's boot having sharp metal spikes on the end, digging right into flesh. You overstepped your boundaries, Stain growled as he brung a dagger to the man's neck. Ow, that hurt, Shigaraki mumbled. You bring us here to talk about our motives, but we all know that's not really why we're here. So spill, Stain said as he pressed the dagger harder onto his neck. I wanted to recruit you into the league, but I don't know if I want you anymore, Shigaraki replied as he reached up and grabbed the dagger. Stain's eyes widened as the dagger started to crack in his hand and eventually turned to dust. Stain jumped back, allowing the blue-haired man to stand back up and wipe himself off. But Hero Hunter, you have potential with us. The League is aiming to kill all heroes and create our own society with our own rules. Even your apprentice would be forgiven for what happened at USJ. We would welcome him with open arms. Shigaraki grinned. Thanks, but we'll pass on the offer, handyman, Garou finally spoke up. You'll come around eventually, Kurojiri. The man motioned towards the bartender. The black mist nodded and raised his arm to create a portal, allowing the three to leave. Izuku walked through the fog and ended up back on the roof next to Garou and Stain. Well, Garou, it looks like this is where we part ways. Stain looked towards the other two. So it is, Garou said as Stain ran and leapt from the roof, disappearing into the horizon. Well, kid, we should probably split up too so we're not recognized together. Alright, what are you going to do? I'll probably go off and hunt some heroes. I know Endeavor has an agency around here, so I'll pick off a couple of his sidekicks, and hey, who knows? Maybe I'll get to take on the raging bastard himself. What about you, kid? I think some of my classmates are interning in the city, so I'll try and meet up with one of them. Sounds good, kid. See you at the park, Garou said as he jumped off the roof, leaving Izuku by himself. Izuku eventually made his way down from the roof and onto the street below. Surprisingly, the day had flown by and it was already nighttime. Izuku walked for about 20 minutes before seeing a bright flash come from a dark alley. He ran over and made his way down the alley to see what all the commotion was about. When he could finally see the outlines of figures in front of him, he climbed up to the roofs of the surrounding buildings and made his way to get a better look at the action below. Izuku's eyes widened at the sight in front of him. Standing above a bloodied pro-hero was the same man he had just met earlier in the day, the hero killer Stain. And standing adjacent to him was none other than his classmate Ilda. Oh shit, Izuku mumbled under his breath as the killer licked his blade, causing Ilda to be frozen in place. Stain began to walk towards Ilda until he was right over him. With one swift motion, he brought out his sword and raised it over Ilda's head. Shit, shit, shit. Do I save Ilda and cross Stain? Do I blow my cover or watch a teenager get murdered? What the fuck do I do? Izuku was shaking at the decision he had to make. Whatever he chose, he knew it was going to have a massive impact on tonight. Izuku watched as Stain began his downward strike, and Izuku moved faster than he ever had. He flew through the air and drove his foot into Stain's head, sending him flying back. Well, I'll be damned. It looks like the ties are now severed. May the best man win Midoriya, Stain yelled as he flung a knife towards Izuku's head. Izuku caught the blade only to find the hero killer right in his face. Stain swung his sword at Izuku's neck, but the kid dodged and threw a punch at the attacker's head. Stain easily blocked the blow and slid back about 10 feet. You must have forgotten something, punk. I've studied your style for over 10 years. I know each combo, parry, strike, you name it, and I'll be able to see it coming. Fuck, Midoriya, look out. Ilda screamed as the hero killer charged the two. Izuku felt his body move on his own. His feet took off towards Stain and jumped at him head-on. The hero killer brought his sword to his chest and slashed at Izuku, but missed when the red-haired kid maneuvered mid-air and blasted him in the face. What the hell was that? Stain yelled in anger. Izuku looked down at his hands in surprise of what just happened. Izuku had never moved or felt like that before. Felt like he was as light as the wind. Izuku looked up towards the fuming villain in front of him and charged. The two clashed back and forth, blocking and dodging blow after blow until Izuku swung hard at Stain's face and collided head-on. Izuku watched as a stream of red followed his hand and stepped back with a smirk on his face. Oh, you're in for it now, Stain. Chapter 27. Stain's body flew through the air and slammed onto the ground about 20 feet away from Izuku. I really hate you, punk. Your new form is annoying, Stain said as he stood up, wiping blood from his face. Hey, it's not my fault you're a lousy vigilante, Izuku replied with a grin. The hero killer charged Izuku and threw several knives at him. Izuku parried each knife down into the ground before looking up to see Stain had thrown his entire sword at him. Izuku threw his head to the side in an attempt to dodge, but was too slow and ended up getting a gash across his cheek. The hero killer then pulled what looked like bombs out from under his shirt and sparkles them up with friction from his fingers. Catch! Stain yelled as he tossed the bombs towards Izuku. The balls landed in front of Izuku and exploded a couple of seconds after. Smoke filled the alleyway, making it hard for Izuku to see the attacker in front of him. Smoke bombs, punk. Let's see how good you can do now, Stain's voice echoed around him. Izuku closed his eyes and took a deep breath, allowing him to focus on his other senses. Izuku felt something shooting towards him and dodged out of the way. He felt the same presence behind him and leapt into the air to avoid the impeding danger. As Izuku came back down to the ground, a sharp pain shot through his leg. Izuku looked down to see Stain had landed a massive slash across his thigh. Izuku tumbled to the ground and watched as Stain took the moment to lift his sword up and bring it down on Izuku's head. Izuku quickly moved his hands up to block the incoming blow but stopped when he heard a massive roar through the alleyway. He glanced above him to see a bright light coming towards him through the smoke, only for it to be Ilda flying towards them at full speed. Ilda's foot collided right into Stain's chest, pushing him back and clearing most of the smoke in the area. "Midoriya, how does the hero kill let know you?" Ilda asked as he helped Izuku up. "I don't know, Ilda, maybe from the sports festival, but that's not important right now. We have to stop him before he kills one of us," Izuku said with a hint of urgency in his voice. "Right," Ilda nodded. "I'll go high, you go low." Izuku turned to Ilda. The engine quirk user nodded in approval and they both took off towards the hero killer. Izuku jumped into the air to block off Stain from running away, and Ilda did a baseball slide trying to take Stain out. The runner swept Stain's legs out from under him, and as he was falling, Izuku landed on top of Stain, placing one foot on Stain's lower back and the other in between his shoulder blades. Izuku pushed downward with all his might, sending the hero killer smashing right into the concrete below. Izuku jumped off him and felt for a pulse to make sure he didn't go overboard and was happy to find a slow heartbeat. "Midoriya, we should tie him up before he regains consciousness," Ilda said as he appeared at Izuku's side. "You're right. Do you have anything we could use?" asked Izuku. Ilda nodded and handed Izuku a couple of zip ties he kept in his belt. Izuku quickly secured Stain's arms and legs to make sure he couldn't get away easily. "Grab the pro and let's go," Izuku called. The two dragged out the unconscious men until they were back in the streets. They propped Stain and the hero up against one of the buildings while Ilda called for backup. As soon as Ilda finished his phone call, a loud bang was heard close by. Then another, and then all of a sudden one of the building walls exploded to reveal a large black Nomu. The creature scanned the street and stopped once it was facing the two students. "Ilda, get behind me!" Izuku yelled. The Nomu let out a terrifying scream and charged at Izuku. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Todoroki and Endeavor appear in the hole the Nomu created. They must have been chasing it, Izuku thought. The creature was closing the distance between Izuku and itself, and Izuku knew he didn't have the strength to bulldoze through the beast. And then everything happened in slow motion for Izuku. He watched as Endeavor raised his arm and started to create what looked like a spear out of fire. Does that idiot think a measly fire blast can kill this thing? Even Kaminari is smarter than that. The Nomu leapt into the air as the spear left Endeavor's hand. The creature was coming right for Izuku and Ilda, and Izuku thought of the best thing he could do. As the Nomu got within range of Izuku, he quickly mimicked the same motions he saw Bomb perform on the training dummy. He moved his hands over his chest, creating a flowing red circle around him. The beast's expression went from anger and destruction to complete surprise as its body was separated into three separate parts. The spear Endeavor threw would have hit the Nomu square in the back, but since its midsection was falling onto the ground in pieces, it continued through the air directly at Izuku. Izuku didn't have time to react due to the body blocking his view and felt pain shoot through his body as the projectile pierced cleanly through left shoulder. "DKU!" screamed Todoroki as he watched his friend fall to the ground with pain in his eyes. That was the last thing Izuku remembered as his world turned to black. Izuku's eyes fluttered open only to be met by a blinding light. "Where am I?" Izuku asked while wiping his eyes. "You're at the hospital." Izuku looked towards the voice to see Todoroki sitting beside his bed. "What's up, Todoroki? How's Ilda?" "He's actually right next to you." "Hello, Midoriya, I am over here," Ilda called from Izuku's opposite side. He turned to find Ilda in his own hospital bed with his arms covered heavily in bandages. "Oh damn. Are you okay, Ilda?" "Midoriya, please watch your language. We must act with the utmost respect in a hospital. But I am doing okay. I have some nerve damage on my arm due to where the hero killer got me a couple of times, but it is nothing too serious." "Midoriya, is there anything I can get you?" Todoroki butted in. "Can you explain to me what happened? My father's spear was meant to hit the Nomu in its spine. But when you cut the thing into pieces, it went through its body and went right into your shoulder." Todoroki motioned to Izuku's shoulder. Izuku looked down to see the massive amount of bandages covering his shoulder. Todoroki, can you pass me my phone? I need to text my mom," asked Izuku. "Sure." Todoroki passed Izuku his phone so he could text his mom, but Izuku had something else in mind. He sent one text to an unknown contact, and within a couple of seconds a reply was shown. Leak it. You got it, kid. Chapter 28. Hey Todoroki, can you turn on the news? Asked Izuku. Sure. The half-and-half user flicked on the news to see the attacks from all over Hosu. The main highlights were about Endeavor's entire roster of sidekicks being taken out through the city due to the hero hunter. They also talked about how an unknown assailant took down the hero killer. Izuku thought it was stupid him and Hilda couldn't get any recognition since they weren't full-fledged heroes. They should get the credit. They took a villain off the streets. The TV brung Izuku out of his thoughts when it started blasting loudly. He glanced up to see what the commotion on screen was about. But once he was the screen, he already knew what was happening. A picture of the number 2 hero was shown and it didn't look good for him. Breaking news. Sorry to interrupt your program, but within the last 5 minutes, we have gotten shocking news on our number 2 hero. An audio file has been leaked that sounds like a conversation between the hero and his son. In the conversation, we hear Endeavor telling his son he only married his mom to produce a kid with a powerful quirk, and on top of that, we also see him threaten his own son. The hero states he will make his son's life worse than his mom's, and after some digging we were able to find out more of what he meant. Around 10 years ago, Endeavor checked his wife into a mental hospital with no valid reason. It was found that he bribed workers there to keep his wife from leaving. We are also now getting another video from an anonymous source that was recorded tonight. Viewer discretion is advised. Izuku watched as the TV showed a recording of him in Hosu tonight. The clip showed everything from the moment the Nomu burst through the wall, all the way up to Endeavor's spear hitting and knocking out Izuku. As you can see, folks, the number 2 hero's reckless actions led to a minor being hospitalized. That's all the information we have at the moment, but stay tuned for more breaking news. Hilda and Izuku slowly looked towards Todoroki, who was staring at the floor. Todoroki, are you? But Izuku didn't get to finish what he was saying. Todoroki had gotten up and stormed out of the room, leaving Hilda and Izuku alone. It's okay, Midoriya, he must be going through a lot right now, and as his friends we will help him get through it. Hilda spoke up. Yeah, you're right, Izuku mumbled. The night ended as Izuku and Hilda were finally discharged from the hospital. As they got outside, they said their goodbyes to one another and went their separate ways. But before they could, a dog-like man stopped them. I'll get right to the chase. My name is Kenji Tsurigami, and I'm the chief of police in Hosu. You both caused a lot of trouble tonight, but I will also thank you for your actions. The hero killer was a threat that must have been taken care of, and I am grateful. But you two did cross the line. Neither of you have your hero licenses yet, meaning you shouldn't be using your quirks. You're very lucky that I was able to keep you uncharged for your actions. Woof, the man explained. I'm very sorry, sir, for my actions. I will make sure to once again follow what it means to be a hero, Hilda replied as he bowed. Izuku stared up at the dogman and was met by his gaze. I did nothing wrong. I don't have a quick, so I didn't break any laws. I only defended myself with my own natural abilities, Izuku said with a cold glare. The Nomu are bioengineered creatures made from dead humans but are somehow given new life. What you did tonight could be classified as murder, something far worse than unlicensed quirk usage. I must be going now. Please get home safe, the poultice chief replied as he walked past the two. Izuku stared down at the ground. He had killed someone. The one thing Garou had told him never to do. Midoriya, please do not listen to the police chief. He may be a very smart man, but he was incorrect on his statement. You saved many lives tonight, and he said the Nomu was already dead. So it scientifically cannot be murder, Hilda explained. Thanks, Hilda, but I'm going to need some time alone if you don't mind. I understand, Midoriya. I will see you at school next week. Yeah, see you too, Hilda. The two went their separate ways as Hilda's family was there to pick him up while Izuku went to catch a train. As Izuku got off the train and made his way to his house, he decided to clear his head and walk through the park where he and Garou first met. He walked and sat on the bench and closed his eyes. He sat there for a couple of minutes until he felt the bench shift due to more weight being added. How you holding up, kid? I've been better. I feel like shit. Yeah, you took a nasty blow today. That's not what I meant, Garou. I killed someone tonight. Those Nomu things are live bioengineered creatures made from dead people, shouted Izuku. Garou looked towards Izuku and put his hand on his shoulder. Kid, listen to yourself. You killed a dead person. Practically the same thing as a zombie. There's nothing wrong with that. Ok, asked Garou. I just don't know, Garou. What if I eventually do cross that line? Izuku asked with tears forming in his eyes. Kid, when I first met you, I saw a lot of myself in you. But you never had the same malicious look in your eyes. You're better than me, and that's one of the reasons I taught you. I know you'll be tempted to cross that line someday, but I know you're stronger than me and won't succumb to the pressure. Damn it, Garou. I hate you sometimes, Izuku said with a laugh as he wiped the tears from his eyes. I know, kid, Garou said with a grin. Now go home and get some rest. Nothing really happened for Izuku in the next couple of days. His internship ship had already ended, and all he had to look forward to was training with Garou in school. As the days continued, Izuku finally went back to school. He walked into class and instantly all eyes were on him. Hey Deku, how was your internship? Uraraka asked. It's not what I expected, but I learned a good amount, replied Izuku. How's you shoulder? She questioned. Did everyone see that video? Izuku said as he flailed his arms. More or less, Uraraka said, trying to comfort Izuku. Izuku went to reply when he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Todoroki giving him a death glare. Outside after class, Todoroki growled. Izuku slowly turned and was met by Uraraka with a similar face. Shit. Chapter 29. The day went by horribly for Izuku. He was so nervous about what was going to happen with Todoroki that he couldn't focus at all during class. Eventually, the day ended as everyone filed out of the room. Izuku stayed put in his seat. He didn't want the rest of his class to witness what was about to happen. Hey Deku, are you going to walk with us today? Uraraka asked while walking up to his desk. Sorry, I can't today, but tomorrow I will, replied Izuku with a fake smile. Uraraka frowned at the sight in front of her. She really didn't like seeing Izuku sad. Hey Deku, you know you can talk to me, right? Uraraka said sincerely. I know. It's just you heard what Todoroki said earlier, and I don't want anyone around for what's about to happen. It's not going to be a pretty conversation. Izuku explained. You're a good person, Deku. Whatever happens, I know you'll make the right decision. Uraraka said with a genuine smile. Thanks, Uraraka. Call me Ochako. Izuku smiled at her as she turned around and left him in the room. He followed soon after and made his way towards the main exit. As Izuku pushed through the doors, he saw one person standing in the middle of the path. Todoroki, Izuku called. Follow me, the half-and-half user growled. Izuku followed him across the courtyard until they were at the corner of the school. Todoroki made the turn, and as soon as Izuku went to turn, Todoroki grabbed his shirt and slammed him into the school. What the hell, Todoroki? Yelled Izuku. Why did you do it? Todoroki said quietly. What do you mean? I know you were the one that took that video. Todoroki screamed. You were the only person who would have been in the hallway during the sports festival. It couldn't have been anyone else, Todoroki angrily stated. Todoroki, I have no idea, Bullshit, Midoriya. Why else would you help me during the battle? You heard the conversation and forced me to use my left. Screamed Todoroki. As he tightened his grip on Izuku. Shoto, please, don't call me that. Fine, Todoroki, what do you want me to say? I was the one who recorded and leaked the information. Sure it was, but I don't regret what I did for a single second. Izuku said as he stared into the cold eyes in front of him. Why? Todoroki said with a shaky voice. Because your father needed to be held responsible for his actions, Todoroki. People need to see what kind of person he actually is, and that's not a hero. Before our match at the sports festival, I stood up for you against your father, and as a result, he threatened to end me. Then, after what happened at Hosu, I couldn't tell if he was actually aiming for me or that Nomu. Explained Izuku. Did you ever stop and think about what would happen to me? Todoroki asked. You're a strong person, Todoroki. I knew that you would be affected by all of this, but you're strong enough to get through it. Izuku said as he felt the grip on his shirt loosen. We're all here for you, Todoroki, Izuku said as he put his hand on the half-and-half shoulder. But as soon as he did, the grip on his shirt tightened once again. Izuku's eyes met Todoroki's as he watched hate explode from within. Todoroki raised his left arm and a concentrated ball of fire grew in his palm. He brung down his palm towards Izuku's head but was stopped when Izuku's arm shot up and redirected the shot upwards. letting out a massive fire blast into the sky. Izuku took advantage of the situation and smashed his head into Todoroki's, knocking him over. Izuku looked down at his fellow classmate in front of him. Todoroki was wiping the blood dripping down from his crooked nose. "Look, Todoroki, you can be mad at me all you want, but deep down I really hope you understand why I did what I did. I'm sorry, but it's going to get better. I promise," Izuku said as he offered Todoroki his hand. The half-and-half user looked at Izuku's hand before accepting the gesture. Todoroki got off the ground and wiped the dirt off his pants and shirt. "I'm sorry, Midoriya. I'm just not used to having people I can turn to in my life," Todoroki explained. "Hey, I should be the one apologizing. I did just break your nose. Don't worry about it. I'll go to the infirmary and get it fixed." The two said their goodbyes and parted ways, with Todoroki going to the infirmary and Izuku his home. The next day, "Class, as you know, we have had a long and somewhat stressful year, but it has helped you all grow tremendously. Now that our internship's out of the way, we are ready to move on to final exams," Aizawa explained. "What?" the class yelled in unison. "1 week until the written exam. The day after will be the practical exam. Those that pass both will be allowed to go on our summer training program. Those of you that do not pass will fall behind and will have trouble attempting to catch up. That is all, class dismissed," Aizawa said as he made his way out the door. "Oh my god, I am not ready for exams," Mina pouted as she slammed her head on her desk. "You being honest, I don't know if I'll be able to pass," expressed Kaminari. "If you guys want, I may be able to help you in your studies. But I won't be much help for the practical exam." Yaoyorozu chimed in. "I may not be one of those two, but may I join too?" asked Jiro. "Me too," Hagakure cheered. "I would also benefit from some extra help," Ojiro said shyly. Momo's eyes lit up at everyone asking her for help. Yes, I can help all of you. I first need to ask my mother to open the hall and prepare everything for us. What type of teas do you guys like?" Yaoyorozu babbled. Her classmates watched as she went on and on, but decided not to say anything because of how happy she was. "Sounds good, Yamamo," Kaminari said with a thumbs up. As the group set up their study plans, another conversation was starting in the classroom. Looks like everyone's going to try their hardest. What about you, Bakubro?" Kirishima asked. "I'll kill you, shitty hair, if you think any of them will score better than me," Bakugo growled. "Well, maybe they will. I actually might ask Yaoyorozu for some help studying," Kirishima said with a grin. "You think she can teach better than me, shitty hair? I'll beat the information into your thick-ass skull," Bakugo exploded. "I count on it, Bakubro." The next week flew by for Class 1A. Each day, the students worked their hardest to prepare for the challenge in front of them. Until finally the day had come. Chapter 30. The written exams went pretty well for Izuku. Overall, Izuku thought he scored top 5 in the class. But the practical exams had him worried. Izuku heard many different rumors about what to expect. Some were robots like the entrance exams, and others were a competition among the class, but you could never be too sure with UA. "Class 1A, make your way to Training Site 3, the speaker announced. The boys made their way out of the changing rooms and met up with the girls on their way to the training site. Izuku could see the anxiousness in everyone's faces besides Todoroki's and Bakugo's. Those two just had black stares. As the class got closer to their destination, Izuku could make out the outline of a couple of their teacher, but eventually Izuku could instead make out every single one. "Oh my god, I can't wait to crush some robots," Mina cheered. "Same, it's going to be a breeze," Kaminari added. The class kept making comments until they became silent as they got in front of the teachers. "Mr. Aizawa, if I may ask, why are all of our teachers here for our exams?" asked Ilda. "This year's exam, we have decided to take a different approach on our practical exam. In years past, we have had a simple robot exam, but due to villains becoming stronger, we have chosen to make this year's exam a little more difficult." What do you mean by more difficult?" Zero asked scaredly. Aizawa let out with a smirk. In the blink of an eye, he threw his binding cloth forward and captured Todoroki. The half-and-half user struggled before being yanked forward in front of Aizawa. "This year, you will be facing us teachers in teams of 2. And you, Mr. Todoroki, are going against me with Yaoyorozu," Aizawa said as he tightened his grip. "To make it fair, us teachers will be wearing special weights that add about half of our body weight. These should make the fight more balanced." Midnight spoke up. "And now for the teams. First, we have Kirishima and Sato versus Cementos. President Mike yelled. The hero went off to list everyone else, but with each group getting assigned, Izuku still waited for his. And lastly, we have Bakugo and Midoriya. As soon as President Mike said the last group, everyone's eyes fell to the two. They all knew that Bakugo and Izuku had a rough relationship, and it was going to make their exam even harder. Versus a voice boomed from the sky. Everyone looked up to see a figure rocketing towards them at high speeds. Izuku narrowed his eyes in an attempt to see who the man was, and then it clicked. Shit, Izuku mumbled under his breath. The figure slammed into the crowd, causing a massive wind blast and dust cloud to be sent out. Izuku stared into the cloud only to see dust until a single piercing blue eye met his. All Might boomed as he waved his hand, blowing away the rest of the dust. The class looked at the teacher in front of them with awe. They knew Izuku and Bakugo were probably the two strongest in the class, but in the end all Might powered them both. You will play the roles of hero as we will be the villains. You can win in two ways, either by capturing us with handcuffs or by making it through the escape gate. Team 1, you start in 15 minutes, Ectoplasm stated. The class was shown to a watchroom where they were given the option to watch the fights of their classmates or an empty room with some tables just to wait. Izuku thought about going to talk to Bakugo about strategy, but when he looked around for the spiky bolt, he was nowhere to be seen. Damn, what was that, Deku? Asked Uraraka. Oh, nothing. I was just looking for Kaken, replied Izuku. I think I saw him leave once we got here. But I could be wrong, said Uraraka. You know what, don't worry about it. I'm sure me and Kaken will do fine. Are you sure? He is the #1 hero for a reason, Deku, reasoned Uraraka. Positive, Izuku said with a smile. But deep down that smile was fake. Izuku knew how strong All Might was. Even Garou said he would have trouble fighting him, and add Kaken into the mix. It makes the whole thing worse. The matches kept going through the day, and Izuku was actually surprised at how well his classmates did. He watched more or less every fight to try and learn his classmates' styles better. It didn't take long for Izuku to realize a lot of them didn't have a style but instead moved all around their quirks. Too easy, Izuku said to himself. The rest on the matches flew by. Most of the class passed, but a couple of groups turned up a little short. As the second to last match ended, Izuku heard his group being classed to the starting line. As Izuku left the watchroom, he noticed Bakugo was already at the starting line, stretching out. You ready, Kaken? Izuku asked, breaking the silence. Get in my way and I'll kill you, Deku. I could do this entire thing by myself if I wanted to. Bakugo angrily replied. Izuku rolled his eyes at Bakugo's remark and started to stretch on his own. As Izuku was finishing up, he heard a loud creaking noise and looked up to see the large gate opening in front of him. He quickly scanned the area and figured their exam area was set up like a typical city. Something Izuku was actually happy about. Start. The two students walked their way into the city as the doors closed behind them. They walked for a little bit in silence until Izuku spoke up. What's your plan? Fight him head on? You know you can't beat him, Kaken. We should avoid a fight at all costs and work our way around. Shut up, Deku, there's no way in hell we do that. I'm gonna fucking do this thing my way and my way only. So if you don't agree with me, then stay the fuck back and don't do any tea. Bakugo didn't get to finish his statement though. The ground starting shaking and a loud rumble was heard. Izuku looked down the street in front of him and saw a massive shock wave flying towards them. He quickly dug his hands into the ground below and held on as hard as he could. The wave slammed into him and starting to pull him out, but Izuku just dug his feet in to cement his position. He looked over at Bakugo, who was flying backwards until he slammed into a street pole. Izuku released himself from the ground and looked at the damage surrounding them. Holy shit, the entire street in front of them was leveled. The buildings lining the streets had their walls torn off, the ground was uplifted, and even the cars had disappeared. Izuku felt like something was off. He could just tell. He quickly pushed himself off the ground and jumped backwards as All Might slammed his fist where he was just standing. The large man slowly stood straight up and stared at the two students. Who gives a damn about destroying the city? If you think of this as an exam, you'll be sorry. I am a villain, heroes. Come at me with everything you got. And that's a wrap for Part 2, Legends. Hope you're as hyped as I am for where Deku's journey with Garou's powers is taking him. Huge thanks to Thebig008 for making this series possible. Be sure to support their work. If you're ready for the next chapter, like, share, and smash that subscribe button so you never miss a beat. Stay legendary, and see you in the next one.